Everyone, thank you for coming to this, our 6th Mercury Blue Pack unveiling. Our duty unveiler today is going to talk later on about HMS Mercury, so not wishing to steal his thunder, I thought I'd just talk just for 2 minutes on our venue today. Broadhalfpenny Down is a unique cricket club, and the Bat and Ball across the road a unique pub. Together they were the centre of the cricketing world in the latter half of the 18th century. Broadhalfpenny Down is the place where a simple country pastime finally left its origins behind and showed the first signs of becoming a national sport. It all happened here. This is the place where crude techniques of the first players were discarded and skills of a more subtle nature appeared. This is the place where enthusiastic amateurs became professional sportsmen. In the mid 1750s and late 1780s, Broadhalfpenny Down was the Olympic stadium of the country. It staged many of the biggest matches. It fielded the most famous team, and that team was the stuff of legends. They took on all comers, while Hampshire looked on as little Hambledon took on the might of all England. And time again, they won. The crowds love it, and again they came back for more. It was true David and Goliath stuff. The mighty changes in the game were pioneered by a chap called Richard Nyren, who was the landlord of the Bat and Ball at the time. And he was the first man to think deeply about the game and how it could be played better, and who, and who combined that remarkable talent with an even rarer one, an extraordinary ability to lead and inspire players, the Men of Hambledon. Today it is the home of the Broadhalfpenny Down Brigands Cricket Club. And under the people who run it now, the cricket story continues, and long may it last. Those of you who have attended unveilings in the past will know that I always read out 1 or 2 messages from the vast following we now have from people all over the world. Today is no exception, but it's with a different slant. A good friend of mine is a man called Nick Jellicoe. And those of you with a naval background, and I would suggest that's most of you here today, will immediately recognise the surname. Nick is the grandson of Admiral Sir John Jellicoe, who commanded the Grand Fleet at the Battle of Jutland. Nick is presently working 24/7 on organising events to commemorate the centenary of Jutland, which, as you all know, I'm sure, is next May. He did, however, find time to call in to see me last week again, and he has given me a message he would like me to read out to you today. I would like to send all of those gathered at Broadhalfpenny Down today my very best wishes for a successful unveiling of this, the 6th HMS Mercury Blue Plaque. I wish I could be with you there in person today, but I am certainly here with you in spirit. I cannot be there because I am in Denmark preparing the first of a series of exhibitions on Jutland at the new Sea War Museum. I have with me a very beautiful model of my grandfather's flagship, HMS Iron Duke, and on its halyard flies the famous signal Equal Speed Charlie London. I have a very special affinity with signalmen of the Royal Navy, who adopted my grandfather's famous signal, hoisted at the Battle of Jutland, as their badge. When David asked me to accept the Equal Speed Charlie London lapel pin, I felt very honoured and very humbled, and wear the badge with pride. I have come to greatly admire my grandfather John Jellicoe in the course of writing my own book on Jutland, which comes out next March. It will be called The Unfinished Battle. I hope to do my grandfather's memory justice and tell his story as fairly but as persuasively as possible. By the way, Admiral Jellicoe and his brother Frederick were keen cricketers. Frederick had a career best figures of 8 for 36 against the Gentlemen of England in 1879. I shall be thinking of you all and hope your day goes well. Nick Jellicoe.
Oh, that's nice.
Our duty unveiler today is a man who I know a great deal of you remember from our days in the Royal Navy.
Yeah.
Indeed, it is a rare occasion these days to speak to ex-communicators who have not known or know of Mr. Morris here. Our past unveilings have been done by a Vice Admiral, 2 Commodores, a Captain, a First Officer and a Commander. But today we are upping our game and cover this right for you. Seriously, Dave is the founding father of our scheme, and I have asked him to do the honours today, not only in recognition of this and his input to the scheme, but also because this venue means so much to him because he played cricket and hockey here many years ago. I have spoken to several of his old shipmates, and without exception they remember him with affection and respect. One of his lads on the bulwark recounts to me that as his DO, Dave once defended him at the captain's table. Dave arrived armed with Queen's regs and all the relevant pages tagged. The end result was that the case was dismissed, and forevermore after that Dave was known as the Perry Mason of the bulwark. Again, in recognition of Dave's hard work, I'd like to present him with a small gizzard so he will remember today. Where's my wife?
Oh, it's excellent, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Morris.
David, thank you very much for all that. For those who may not be aware, I was aware when I was thinking about unveiling today that half the people here will know all about Broadhalfpenny Down, but perhaps not about HMS Mercury, and the other half will know all about HMS Mercury, but perhaps not about Broadhalfpenny Down. So I'm hoping to cover the both. For those who may not be aware, HMS Mercury, the Royal Navy Communications and Navigation School, occupied 120 acres of the old Ladine site, just 1 mile northwest of here from 1941 to 1993. In 2013, 20 years after Mercury closed, there was no real evidence on the site that it ever existed. So I decided to investigate what could be done to remedy this. Following consultation with a number of sources, including English Heritage, South Downs National Park and local authorities, I started the Mercury Blue Plaque scheme, the aim of which is to commemorate the existence of HMS Mercury and its impact on the local and wider community. I invited a cross-section of ex-Mercury personnel to form a working party to discuss the details and to confirm a list of possible sites, and the first plaque was eventually unveiled on the Rising Sun Public House at Clanfield on the 26th of October 2014. Having planned, organised and managed the scheme and the unveiling of the first plaque, I handed everything over to David Smith before my wife and I disappeared to the flatlands of Norfolk. I'm most grateful to David for the excellent job he is doing in rolling out the scheme, and I'm also grateful to him and others for inviting me back to unveil this latest blue plaque. Being in such a remote location, some distance from the naval community of Portsmouth with all its resources, Mercury had to be self-sufficient in many things, including essential sport and recreation and social facilities. This was particularly important in the days when transport was scarce, and for a minor establishment, Mercury enjoyed an excellent selection of indoor and outdoor sporting facilities, of which Broadhalfpenny Down was the jewel in the crown. Some Mercury officers enjoyed occasional cricket here during the war, and after the war Mercury staged matches here. In 1952, the captain of Mercury took over the leash as an official playing field, and initially hockey was also played on the site. The same year, a group of naval officers formed the Broadhalfpenny Brigands with this as their home ground, and they subsequently took over the leash from the Royal Navy in 1992, the year before Mercury closed. Mercury's number 1 cricket pitch was actually situated at Hyden Wood, which is at the end of the Hyden Farm Lane that runs alongside this ground up to Ladine, and the pitch is still in use. However, Broadhalfpenny Down was fully utilised for interdepartmental matches, often in the early evening, at weekends by the Brigands, and for special fixtures and events, whilst the ground continued to be managed and maintained by the sports staff and groundsmen from Mercury. As David has said, whenever we advertise the unveiling of the next plaque, we receive a number of messages recalling relevant memories of service at Mercury, and this is no exception. As well as remembering playing hockey and cricket here, some people recall working on this site as young sailors helping the groundsmen. One person remembers turning out for the Brigands along with other young trainees, and another recalls that in 1973 he played in a game of hockey versus a Wren's team. The sailors were only too aware of the reputation of female hockey players, so they all wore cricket boxes. One popular fixture held here during one period was an annual all-day Sunday game between the officers and the senior 18s, which was great fun, played in the real spirit of the game. It was particularly interesting in 1983 when the fixture took on an international flavour, as we were joined by a number of Australian and New Zealand naval personnel who were on a year's exchange duty at Mercury and other establishments in the area. And of course the Bat and Ball pub was a popular venue for the sailors, who often walked here in the evenings and at weekends. Sport and recreation was very important at Mercury, and the widest range of personnel played together in the various teams, from the youngest sailors to the most senior officers. Captain John Tate, the captain of Mercury in 1977 and 78, was a very good hockey player and a regular member of the establishment team. Sport at Mercury, as elsewhere in the Navy, was very democratic, with no barriers of rank. However, playing alongside a senior captain who was the captain of your establishment is a different matter, and all the team felt compelled to call him sir on and off the pitch. John realised that this wasn't ideal, and one day he announced that in all things to do with the hockey team was to be known as X, the unknown factor. From then on, in the changing rooms, on the field and in the sports club afterwards, where he always joined us, he was addressed as X by the Mercury and visiting players alike. The hockey pitch was briefly reinstated on this ground for just one season in the early 1970s, so there are a number of us who've actually played both cricket and hockey here. The hockey pitch was reinstated by Chief PTI Lex Barker, who was responsible for the management of the ground at the time, and I'm pleased to say he's here today. Welcome, Lex, good to see you. Mercury's years of existence may not compare with the 250 years of Broadhalfpenny Down, but it did have a major impact. During its 52 years, approximately 500,000 personnel served or trained at Mercury. They came from all branches of the Royal Navy, from other branches of the Armed Forces, and from the local community. And they came from many different countries, NATO, Commonwealth and others. It's acknowledged that the personnel who served and trained in communications, special communications and navigation at Mercury made a significant contribution to World War II, the Cold War and the Falklands War. One of the objectives of the Broadhalfpenny Down Preservation Trust is to promote the education of the public on matters connected with the history of the cricket ground. So it's a pleasure and a privilege to unveil this plaque, which commemorates the link between two unique historical societies.
Blue